Welcome back to the deep dive. Look, if you need a shortcut to understanding how success is, well, measured and monetized in the, let's face it, dizzying world of entertainment today, you are definitely in the right place. We have pulled just a huge stack of sources for you, spanning everything from billion-dollar theatrical hits, really fragmented streaming data, and all the latest moves in, fandom commerce. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is really to go behind the curtain, analyze the machinery of modern entertainment, what we're calling the transmedia flywheel. This is that continuous kind of self-sustaining system where studios, platforms, they weave storytelling, fandom, and commerce all together. We're going to look at specific data points, the stuff that really reveals the strategies driving profits and, importantly, cultural relevance right now.
What's fascinating here is the data absolutely forces us to abandon those old ideas of success. A hit. It's just not isolated to one platform anymore. Not at all. The biggest winners, the ones really succeeding right now, are those who can seamlessly connect, say, global box office velocity to the music charts, to minute view data on streaming, and critically fan-driven activity on social platforms like TikTok or YouTube. The strategic challenge, it's really identifying the leverage points in that loop. Where do you push to make the whole thing spin faster?
Okay, and you're saying we have concrete proof of this dynamic.
Absolutely. And we've got some really solid examples. We'll start with Warner Brothers Discovery's really powerful theatrical run lately. Then we'll analyze Netflix's almost surgical ability to turn non-English titles into global powerhouses. And importantly, we'll dedicate significant time to what is, honestly, a textbook blueprint for success. The extraordinary case of K-pop Demon Hunters. That property, it shows us exactly what happens when that flywheel is spinning at, maximum efficiency.
Okay, let's open with the theatrical battleground then. Because the numbers coming out of Warner Brothers Discovery, they're more than just impressive, right? They seem to signal a fundamental recovery, maybe even strategic dominance. Our sources are confirming WBD just became the first studio to cross the $4 billion mark at the global box office in 2025. I mean, that is just a staggering milestone for this point in the year.
It really is. And we have to unpack why that $4 billion mark is so significant right now. Yes, it suggests aggressive, successful slate planning. It's definitely benefited from strong international market recovery. But also, I think, from a willingness to bet on high-quality, high-profile projects, stuff that transcends that kind of mid-budget malaise we've seen. And critically, this isn't reliance on just one mega franchise. That's the key insight here.
Right. And that's supported by the consistency metric you mentioned. This milestone was achieved with the studio's 8th consecutive #1 opener, 8 in a row. What does that kind of streak tell us? I mean, about their operational risk tolerance, maybe their marketing execution compared to competitors who might be struggling with more, uneven performance.
Yeah, it speaks volumes. It speaks to deep confidence in execution and positioning. They are managing anticipation, turning it into real urgency. Look at their latest hit, one battle after another. It's from Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. It's not some big IP-driven blockbuster. It's prestige cinema. Right.
Yeah.
Yet it drove major opening weekend numbers.
Okay.
The source describes it less as a conventional film, actually, and more like a cultural moment. A messy, urgent sprawl of satire, drama, and absurdist humor. Kind of hard to pin down.
So how does that type of prestige cinema, that cultural moment film, how does that feed the flywheel differently than, say, a superhero sequel? What's the tangible ROI on a cultural moment? Is it just buzz?
Well, it's more than just buzz, though buzz is part of it. The ROI is its long-tail relevance and institutional prestige. And that prestige, it attracts top-tier talent for future projects. Critics are calling this one of DiCaprio's best performances in years. That critical buzz, coupled with the cross-disciplinary element of Johnny Greenwood's score.
Right. The score itself becomes part of the ecosystem.
Exactly. Which is driving streams on its own. It generates conversation that sustains the film long after that opening weekend rush. And that conversation, that deep critical validation, it becomes a crucial, maybe non-monetary layer of the flywheel initially, but it fuels Oscar talk, and that guarantees long-term licensing value down the road. It's the kind of project that keeps the industry focused on your slate, as a whole.
Okay, that focus makes sense. And it brings us perfectly to next week's box office, which, wow, it's shaping up to be the ultimate test of that cultural versus pure commercial momentum idea. We have Benny Safdie's prestige biopic, The Smashing Machine, going head-to-head with the pure eventized commerce of Taylor Swift. Life of a showgirl.
Yeah, this is a perfect high-stakes showdown, exactly the kind of contrast we're talking about. On one side, you have The Smashing Machine. It's an A24 prestige release, right?
Yeah.
Focused on raw emotion, unflinching authenticity. It stars Dwayne Johnson as the MMA legend Mark Kerr. And this is DJ's big transformative pivot. He's shedding that action star armor, using prosthetics, showing real vulnerability.
And the critical validation is already huge, right?
Mm.
A 15-minute standing ovation at Vimest's early Oscar buzz, that's serious prestige. Commercially, though, the expectation is what? A solid $10+ million opening, aimed squarely at that adult prestige audience, which, for A24, that's a strong number, absolutely signifying long-tail cultural impact.
Definitely strong for that kind of film. But then you contrast that calculated prestige approach with the sheer mobilizing power of Taylor Swift, Life of a Showgirl. Projections suggest this concert film is expected to command the #1 spot, easily. It just illustrates that guaranteed, pre-mobilized audience event cinema. It often completely overwhelms traditional critical releases in that opening frame. The data tells us that sometimes, if you can turn a viewing into a collective cultural event, something that must be experienced right now, well, critical acclaim becomes almost secondary to immediate, massive audience turnout.
This tension, it leads us nicely into franchise marketing baselines, because the data seems clear. Brand equity alone, just having a known name, it isn't sufficient anymore. Even massive IP needs to translate anticipation into mainstream urgency, and increasingly that seems to mean connecting directly to consumer products, or CP.
Exactly. And maybe we should just quickly clarify that jargon for listeners. When we talk about CP, we mean consumer products, so merchandise, licensing, toys, apparel, basically the commercial arm of the IP. And when we discuss marketing baselines, we're using these industry models, ways to predict opening success based on early signals, like trailer views, social buzz, that kind of thing.
Got it. And right now we're seeing two major IPs approaching this CP strategy quite differently. Let's look at Wicked. For good, the final trailer just dropped. Box office projections seem steady, but the analysis we looked at says the real story there is positioning it as a merchandising powerhouse, especially heading into that crucial holiday corridor.
Precisely. The movie itself is being strategically leveraged as a platform for the products, starting right now. The marketing isn't just about selling the ticket anymore. It's about establishing the look, the feel, the desire for the licensed goods. And this is absolutely crucial for studios because, let's be honest, the merchandise window often offers much higher margins than the theatrical release itself.
Okay, now contrast that strategy with The Mandalorian and Grogu. I mean, this is Star Wars, right? One of the most powerful IPs in history. Yet, after the initial trailer, the non-marketing baseline currently sits at Tier 3.
And Tier 3, in this context, generally means a lower-tier projection category. It's a respectable baseline for, say, a franchise extension, but it's definitely not signaling a guaranteed breakout blockbuster yet. And critically, the current signals show very little CP impact. Consumer product interest isn't really firing yet. This tells us brand equity, even Star Wars equity, is no longer a guaranteed conversion factor for merchandise, not automatically anyway. The path to breakout success for Mandalorian, especially on the CP front, it seems to require delivering on 3 specific fronts in the next phases of marketing.
Okay, so what are those 3 crucial fronts for success then? What do they need to nail?
Okay, first, story depth. They really need to clearly frame the stakes and the emotional arc. Look, fandom knows the characters, sure, but the mainstream audience needs a clear, compelling reason why this specific journey matters now.
Right, make it feel essential, not just another chapter.
Exactly. Second, event positioning. They've got to balance that deep nostalgia, which is powerful, with genuine family blockbuster appeal. It needs to feel big, like a cinematic event, not just, an extended episode.
Makes sense. And the third.
And third is execution. This means generating authentic word of mouth, which you can't totally manufacture, and fueling it with global marketing precision, really targeted campaigns. If they don't hit those 3 markers, especially connecting that emotional arc directly to collectible moments that drive CP well, that Tier 3 baseline might just hold, and they risk leaving potentially billions on the table in consumer products, that's the potential downside.
Okay, let's pivot now to streaming. Because the landscape there seems defined by platforms finding their niche, but also rapidly accelerating globalization. Netflix, in particular, seems to have mastered the art of, manufacturing and elevating new global stars almost instantly.
They really have. It's like they've turned data into a talent scouting mechanism. Look at the rom-com The Wrong Keris, starring Miranda Cosgrove. Our sources say it topped movie charts in 50+ countries. That's an instant, massive elevation of her profile globally. It's not just that the content performs well, it's that Netflix uses that incredible global reach to turn actors into highly recognizable, highly bankable assets. And often, These actors are identified through prior engagement data, from other stuff they were in on the platform.
Right, they see who pops in smaller roles and give them a shot.
Pretty much. And while these new stars emerge, the persistent hits, they just keep the engine humming. We see that incredible sustained relevance with K-pop Demon Hunters. It logged another 30-plus million hours viewed globally, down only, 6% week over week. That's demonstrating extraordinary engagement well past its initial release window.
Which brings us back to that U.S. number. Why did it log its highest weekly U.S. total to date, 1.1 billion minutes viewed, during the final week of August? That seemed counterintuitive, being so far past the launch.
Right. And our analysis suggests this peak wasn't accidental at all. It seems to directly correlate with a major push of licensed consumer products hitting the market, plus a synchronized music release that really took off on TikTok. It proves that aggressive monetization, when timed right, actually feeds viewing. The CP release created marketing noise, discussion, visibility, which drove viewers back into the platform, generating that massive minute-viewed surge in the U.S.
Wow. Okay, so the merch drop literally drove viewing figures up. That connecting of dots is crucial.
Absolutely. But the biggest strategic insight from Netflix overall, I think, remains the massive impact of non-English titles. And this isn't just about diversity checkboxes. It's a data-driven strategy. Content sourcing that recognizes global audiences demand localization and high-quality stuff from everywhere.
Scale's just huge.
It's stunning. The success of the Korean historical drama Bon Appetit, Your Majesty, generating 80 million plus hours viewed worldwide, reaching #1 in over 20 markets. This isn't just relying on existing K-pop or K-drama familiarity. This is a high-quality, high-budget historical piece, proving that global audiences are pretty platform agnostic when the content quality is there. And crucially, the dubbing and subtitling are excellent.
And this global success, it's deeply fragmented now, isn't it? It's not just Korea. We're seeing top 10 breakouts from Germany with She Said Maybe, India with Sayara. Then there's Spain's Billionaire's Bunker cracking the top series list in over 50 countries, and a French film, French Lover, debuting as the top movie in nearly 30 markets. It's coming from everywhere.
Exactly. And this tells us two really important things. First, that localization efforts are succeeding. The investment in dubbing, subtitling, local marketing, it's working. And second, that global taste is diversifying rapidly. Think about it. 5 years ago, only major Hollywood blockbusters could reliably top charts in 30-plus countries. Now, a Spanish drama or a French film, precisely because it is targeted and high quality for its intended audience, can achieve that scale almost instantly, provided the platform enables that global distribution. This is a massive shift in content power, moving away, somewhat, from pure Hollywood output dominating everything.
Okay, shifting gears slightly to other platforms, Disney Plus and HBO Max, they seem to be strategically leveraging their own deep global IP libraries. Pixar's Elio, for instance, dominated its first full week on Disney Plus Way, ranking #1 in over 60 countries.
Yeah, and that's a key piece of data there. Elio's theatrical performance, well, it might not have met every expectation the studio had, but its performance on Disney Plus confirms that Pixar's brand equity remains incredibly robust globally, especially for family audiences in that streaming environment. That immediate global dominance is proof that the platform can, let's say, salvage or certainly reinforce the long-term value of a major IP even after a mixed theatrical run.
And Marvel's pull just seems universal still. Marvel Zombies launched midweek, and sources say it quickly became the top series in more than 50 countries.
It just reinforces Marvel's ability to transcend genre and format, doesn't it? Whether it's live action, animation, or even a darker take on the superhero premise like Zombies, the brand itself guarantees massive initial engagement. And similarly, HBO Max is leveraging its crown jewels. Superman arrived in full force, leading global movie rankings, topping charts in 50-plus countries. Meanwhile, Peacemaker gained fresh momentum, enough to reach the #1 series position again. It's that constant cycling of known, beloved IP that keeps those platform subscribers engaged and sticky.
And we can't overlook the PVOD power, right? Outside of the main subscription windows. Tom Cruise's mission. Impossible. The Final Reckoning apparently secured the top spot across multiple PVOD platforms.
Right. That shows that certain eventized franchises, especially those tied to huge stars like Cruise, possess an almost unstoppable monetization stream regardless of how complicated the release windows become.
Absolutely.
Cruise and Mission. Impossible represent that sort of rare tier of talent and IP that can command top dollar on demand, proving that not all premium content has to be exclusive to a single streamer to generate significant revenue. People will pay extra for it.
Okay, now let's get specific on the currency of engagement, minutes viewed. For you listening, If you're tracking the competition, the data from that final week of August provides a really critical insight into the sheer scale of consumption, particularly in the US.
Yeah, this is where we define the absolute top tier of engagement.
Yeah.
We already mentioned K-pop Demon Hunters claiming the top spot with that staggering 1.1 billion minutes viewed. And just to put that in context, only a handful of shows ever surpass the billion-minute mark in a single week. That is basically the gold standard for sustained cross-demographic viewing engagement on streaming.
And right there with it, competing for that top spot was the Thursday Murder Club, also surpassing the billion-minute mark. Then Netflix's YA series, My Life with the Walter Boys, its season 2 debut, tallied 987 million minutes. I mean, we're talking about massive scale consumption in just 7 days. The smallest difference between those top 3 titles represents millions and millions of individual viewing decisions.
Exactly. And the list continues to show the diversity of content hitting this top-tier scale. You had Katrina, Come Hell or High Water, hitting 911 million minutes Wednesday, still showing incredible staying power, with 870 million. Prime Video's The Summer I Turned Pretty recorded 717 million minutes, which was actually a new series high for them, showing it's finding momentum deeper into its run. And Marvel's Thunderbolts premiere on Disney Plus drew 702 million. Basically, if a title is hitting over 700 million minutes viewed in the US in a week, it is unequivocally a primary driver of platform engagement and, crucially, retention. It's keeping people subscribed.
Okay, so now we take that billion-minute benchmark, K-pop Demon Hunters, and really analyze exactly how it went from being just a streaming hit to this synchronized juggernaut you described. This is the blueprint, you're saying, for the Transmedia Flywheel in 2025.
Absolutely. The core principle, it really must be understood. Its momentum is not confined to Netflix. Its success is engineered, maybe even orchestrated, by ensuring that every channel, streaming, music, social, commerce, amplifies the others. It creates this constantly reinforcing loop of relevance and, importantly, revenue. Each part feeds the next.
Okay, we've established the streaming persistence with those massive viewing hours, but let's talk about the music dominance. The soundtrack became the first soundtrack in 10 years to have a single top the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 weeks. That's huge.
6 weeks. It's an incredible run for any song, let alone one tied directly to an IP like this. This means the show is literally dictating the pop music landscape, at least for that period. The soundtrack isn't just, some promotional tool. It is a cultural anchor. The music provides this constant, highly repeatable reminder of the IP. It drives people back to the show for context, maybe to see the scene where the song plays.
Which in turn drives more music consumption, streaming the song again.
Exactly. It's the loop. Contrast this with the general music movements we see elsewhere on the charts. Jin's Don't Say You Love Me climbing to number 4. Or new albums from maybe breakthrough artists like Gabriella from Cast Eye hitting the top 10. K-pop Demon Hunters is dominating the center of that chart precisely because its relevance is being constantly reinforced from multiple angles, especially the show itself.
And the true engine here, the element that seems to make this model potentially scalable, is the fandom, right? Audiences have transitioned entirely from just passive viewers to active, highly productive participants in the whole thing.
Totally. And we have the data to actually prove their productivity. The sources use Vobal Data Insights, and maybe we should quickly explain what that means for everyone listening. Vobal specifically tracks and measures fan-generated content, so uploads, remixes, edits, and organic engagement across major social platforms. It's how studios gauge the true viral footprint of a property, the stuff happening outside of their own paid marketing efforts.
Got it. And those Vobal figures for K-pop Demon Hunters are, frankly, explosive. 267,000 fan uploads, generating more than 65 billion views across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.
That volume 65 billion views is just non-negotiable proof of fan power. Think about the value of that for a second. It's an astronomical amount of organic, often high quality, and essentially free marketing. Every meme, every lip-sync video somebody makes, every cosplay tutorial, it all drives engagement and pulls new viewers into the orbit of the show. This grassroots community, which is highlighted by things like the dedicated subreddit that rallies nearly 465,000 weekly active fans, people sharing fan art, theories, cosplay photos, it provides this constant creative feedback loop that extends the property's longevity dramatically.
And that sustained engagement, that constant fan activity, it leads to what the sources call the cultural half-life, right? This cross-platform resonance extends a property's lifespan way beyond a typical show's decay curve, and it perfectly positions it for crucial monetization windows.
Precisely. The show maintains incredibly high viewing and social activity right into the holiday window, starting with Halloween. And that specific timing. It's ideal for high-margin licensing costumes, collectibles, gifts. It allows them to capitalize on the cosplay trend and the gift-giving rush simultaneously. And this leads directly to the core business lesson here, the real takeaway for marketers.
Which is a commerce lesson, the challenge, maybe the difficulty of capitalizing on that fast-moving digital buzz with, actual physical products.
Yeah.
The data shows there was initial hesitation from licensees.
Yeah, exactly. Despite all those massive early digital signals, the mobile data, the streaming numbers, the social velocity licensees, the companies that actually make the merch were generally not on board pre-launch. They were hesitant.
Why the hesitation, though, with that much data? Seems counterintuitive.
Well, that hesitation is often the death knell for modern IP monetization. Traditional licensees, they often wait for guaranteed box office results or long-term proven engagement metrics. But digital buzz, especially on platforms like TikTok, moves much, much faster than those traditional timelines. If they wait for the old signals, the moment of peak hype, that intense fan demand, it might have already passed.
So speed becomes the critical factor.
Absolutely. Netflix's response, therefore, is the blueprint for speed. They moved quickly, really quickly, to fast-track consumer products, resulting in over 300 licensed products going live on its storefront relatively rapidly.
Okay, wait. 300 products, fast track. Doesn't that create a huge risk? Oversaturation, maybe quality control issues? Does the data really support rushing that much product out, or is it just a massive gamble?
Look, it is absolutely a calculated risk, no doubt about it. But the data, the Volble ratio showing billions of views, the consistent billion-minute viewing weeks, it strongly suggested that the reward of capturing that narrow window of peak fan hype far outweighed the risk of, say, minor oversaturation or a few initial product bumps. The biggest risk, from their perspective, was not having the products available when fans were actively demanding them online and in stores. That's the opportunity cost they wanted to avoid.
So they prioritized speed and scale.
They did, because they had what they saw as non-negotiable proof of concept from the digital engagement.
Yeah.
Bottom line here, for anyone listening, is that keeping a close pulse on fandom via real-time data and then accelerating the path from internet buzz to a full product line, that closes the commercial side of the flywheel almost instantly. It proves that data-driven speed is the commercial advantage of the modern streamer or studio.
Okay, so the flywheel dictates that IP is no longer restricted to its original format, right? It has to extend into lifestyle, into strategic industry partnerships, and it even seems to set the direction for future casting decisions for major franchises. We're really seeing IP cross into pretty much every consumer category now.
We really are. We are seeing IP become lifestyle branding in a way that's much deeper than before. It's not just about action figures or posters anymore. It's personal care. It's high fashion. Look at preschool IP, like Gabby's Dollhouse. It is successfully extended into the beauty category via Ella Mila nail polish. They have 5 playful shades tied directly to the characters. And it's moved into everyday routines with urban hydration kits, hair care detanglers, styling products. This demonstrates that even the youngest audiences, or rather their parents, are driving high-margin, repeatable CPG sales that's consumer packaged goods.
And on the other end of the spectrum, fashion and tech. Disney's anticipation for Tron. Aries is being actively built through an Adidas collaboration. They unveiled these limited-run sneakers with reflective materials, circuit-inspired motifs.
Yeah, that's a brilliant tie-in. It weaves that aspirational fashion element directly into the cinematic world before the movie is even released. It essentially turns the apparel itself into a kind of moving trailer, building hype among a specific audience.
And even horror IP is making the jump now, which, as you said, is traditionally a tougher market for broad lifestyle goods. Reports point to a collaboration between Lethal Cosmetics and the Conjuring universe.
Right, and that highlights horror's growing influence in the beauty and lifestyle category. It proves that intense, maybe niche fandom can be monetized effectively outside of just traditional horror collectibles like masks or figures. Basically, every IP with a strong enough following is now seen as a potential lifestyle brand opportunity.
Okay, beyond products, we're also seeing strategic partnerships that seem to be fundamentally restructuring how fandom gathers and how they consume content related to these IPs. TikTok seems to be forcing itself right into the center of that whole conversation.
Oh, this is a huge industry move, really significant. TikTok is positioning itself as the official video platform for CCXP 25 in São Paulo this December. That's one of the biggest fan conventions in the world. They're partnering directly with the omelet company who runs it.
And this isn't just about running ads at the event, right? It's deeper.
Much deeper. It's about deep integration. They are creating a dedicated lounge creators by TikTok space right there on the convention floor. They're running workshops for creators.
So TikTok is literally embedding creator-driven content into the convention's core structure. It takes that digital engine, the fan creativity, and puts it right into the physical event space.
Exactly, which extends CCXP's reach far beyond the physical attendance in São Paulo, obviously, and it ensures that the content generated at the convention is immediately optimized for the fastest-growing fan platform out there. It's a really smart symbiotic relationship they're building.
We're also seeing these global local alliances solidifying distribution and maybe payment channels. Disney deepening engagement in key international markets like Brazil by partnering with a major financial services group, Bradesco.
Mm-hmm. That ensures smoother, more localized monetization, making it easier for fans to buy Disney Plus or related products, and it helps with targeted marketing reach within that specific country. It removes friction.
And we shouldn't forget the foundation of fandom sometimes remains physical. Topps expanded its relationship with Disney through new trading card sets.
Yeah, underscoring the enduring centrality of physical collectibles to high-value fan engagement. Even in a digital world, people love to own, trade, and display physical items connected to their favorite IPs. It's a core part of fandom for many.
Okay, finally, let's look quickly at how future IP is being strategized. One of the most interesting moves seems to be the direction they're taking with James Bond.
Yeah, the Bond franchise looks like it's undergoing a massive strategic reboot. We know Denis Villeneuve is set to direct the next chapter once he wraps Doom, Part 3. And the really interesting part is that producers are signaling a clear focus on Bond's origins. They are actively looking to cast an unknown British actor, someone in his late 20s or early 30s.
An unknown. That's a huge swing away from the established star model they've used for decades.
It really is. This decision signals a willingness to take a huge risk, completely eschewing guaranteed star power for, presumably, long-term narrative authenticity and a full reset of the character's core identity. They're betting on the director, the IP itself, and finding the right actor, not just the biggest name.
It's a calculated move away from the known commodity. Meanwhile, Sony seems to be making much more surgical adjustments to its animation slate. Spider-Man. Beyond the Spider-Verse shifted forward by just 1 week to June 18th, 2027. Doesn't seem like much.
Well, even tiny scheduling moves like that are tactical at this level. This small adjustment likely reflects confidence in their competitive positioning around that date, and maybe fine-tuning the international rollout strategy for that absolutely crucial animated franchise. They are basically fine-tuning the global release calendar to maximize its synergy with surrounding events, school holidays, competitor releases, minimizing friction for that all-important international audience. Every little bit helps.
And amidst all these calculated data moves, the CP strategies, the strategic casting decisions, we still have to recognize that authentic, emotional content can break through, right? Owen Cooper and Stephen Graham's really emotional win for adolescents at the Emmys. It feels like a reminder.
Absolutely. A reminder that sincerity, originality, powerful performances, they still cut through all the noise and capture critical consensus, and often audience hearts, too. Not everything can be perfectly engineered by the flywheel. Sometimes raw talent just wins. #outro.
So what does this all mean? Wrapping this up, our deep dive today confirms, I think, that the modern entertainment expert, or even just an informed fan like you, really has to track success across 4 distinct but tightly linked silos now. You've got the velocity of theatrical events, the globally fragmented streaming success patterns, the constant hum of the music charts acting as an anchor, and this accelerated, increasingly data-driven world of consumer products and licensing. They all feed each other.
Yeah, and the key insight for you, the learner listening today, is really understanding the speed of conversion required now. The difference between just a high-performing show and a truly cultural movement, that perfect flywheel effect we saw with K-pop Demon Hunters, it lies in quantifying that fan activity, using data like Vopals, and then acting aggressively to monetize that activity while the iron is hot.
Right.
Brand equity alone, whether it's a giant like Star Wars or a consistent performer like Marvel, it just isn't enough anymore. The speed of execution and that direct connection to commerce are now the dominant factors for maximizing value.
The industry is getting incredibly effective, maybe even ruthlessly efficient, at leveraging data to push IP into every single facet of our lives, from nail polish, as we saw, to limited edition sneakers. But we also see that critical tension playing out, don't we? The industry is becoming this machine of efficiency, yet the biggest breakthroughs, those career-defining performances, the 15-minute standing ovations for a raw performance like Dwayne Johnson's in The Smashing Machine, they still seem to rely on that raw, unflinching emotion and truly original storytelling.
Exactly. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, the data reveals that fandom, globally, is increasingly dictating where the industry invests its resources and attention. We see platforms like TikTok integrating directly into major fan events in places like São Paulo. We see Netflix leaning incredibly hard into content dominance, originating from Seoul, from Germany, from Spain. And this raises, I think, a really important question for all of us to chew on. In a world where global fan data increasingly dictates the next product line, the next green light, are future generation-defining franchises more likely to be built, nurtured, and launched in São Paulo, or Seoul, or maybe Mumbai? Or will Hollywood successfully adapt and recapture the initiative? That's the critical uncertainty, I think, as we look toward the future of this whole ecosystem. Where will the next big thing truly come from?